Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. I'm very excited to have a man who needs no introduction sitting in the seat across from me. Keith Bang Man McCurdy has changed the tattoo game. A true legend's tattooed everybody under the sun. I'm sure everyone knows all the famous folks that you tattooed, but more compelling than all those famous people, it's just your story, your journey, the way you respond to failure, and have turned that into the tremendous success that you are, is the reason why I'm so excited to speak with you, my man.
Well, man, I can just say I'm humbled to be here. Your interest in what we do is I mean, it really legitimizes it legitimizes all the hard work we've been doing. So, a lot of people don't take tattooing seriously. And so for you to be interested in what we do and to put me on your platform means a lot.
I appreciate it, man. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like tattooing is something that's become so much more mainstream. Just, the folks who follow my social media know that I got my first tattoo this year. And it's something I've actually been thinking about for years. It's just become just part of mainstream culture, and yeah. I did have some trepidation about getting a tattoo, but I knew I was in great hands when I went to your spot, and it was an amazing experience, which I'm going to get into a little bit, just how you've kind of changed the whole culture of tattooing, and something that was perhaps not considered mainstream and on sort of the periphery of mainstream society, although that's questionable, has become something that's just very acceptable and mainstream. So and you played a big role in that, man.
It's getting there. It's still got a long way to go.
Yeah.
A lot of hard work. It takes people in tattooing taking it seriously, and it's a interesting, easy thing to get into. You can buy tattoo equipment on the internet without licenses. In many states, you don't have to be licensed, and so there's a lot of people in tattooing that aren't helping it carry, but there are a lot of people who are. So it's going to take more time, more effort, and people, treating it with professionalism, on both sides, clients and artists alike.
Yeah, which is very much like the experience that I had. I'm going to dive into that a bit, then we're going to go backtrack. But when I went to your Grand Street location, and it was over 3 sessions that I had my tattoo. But I remember, first of all, the whole process of making the appointment was so professional. In fact, I learned from your process. It helped my business. It was very streamlined. You email Bang Bang first, and you kind of request the artist that you'd like to work with, and then the artist vets the art that you want to do. And it's a pretty extensive questionnaire that you have to fill out with the specific anatomic location you want the tattoo, the size of the tattoo, what the tattoo is of, some representative images of what you might think your tattoo would want to emulate. And, after that vetting process, the artist either says yay or nay. And if the artist says yay, I actually had a FaceTime, which is not, my tattoo artist was Trudy Lines on Instagram, if you guys want to follow her, who you should follow. She's an amazing tattoo artist. But she actually FaceTimed me. She travels a lot, so she FaceTimed me, and we just had a FaceTime consultation just to talk about the art a little bit. And, the vision, I wanted a Ganesh. Ganesh is very important in my life, in Indian god. And, my vision of what I wanted was actually very different than what we actually ended up with. And I really credit that to Trudy's vision and the artist's vision, creating something that I'm so excited to have on my body. And just, it really represents what I wanted this tattoo to be. And then from that, going into the location, it's so high end, man. It's really just, you're greeted by this beautiful reception area. I was immediately taken down to the lounge area, which is on the basement level, which is this super, chill, posh space where you have all these snacks and water, and
it's right next to the smoking room, so it smells like weed.
Yeah, it smells. It does smell a lot like weed in the parlor, which is also something that's become a lot more mainstream as well. Yeah. But it was just an awesome experience, and that I think the artists are all world-class artists. I know you recruit artists from all over the world. You sponsor their visas from other countries. You really play a big role in having the best talent in your shop, and you have a lot of artists that work in alongside you. But it was that the apart from the art, it's those intangibles that make you feel like you're in good hands. And, just from the details, and this is something I do in my office too, those Bang Bang gloves that you have, those black gloves. I actually have those same gloves from the same manufacturer with my logo on them.
Did you get them after, or did we?
No, I had them before. I had them before I saw them. When Trudy put the gloves on, I was like, oh, I have those same exact gloves. But those little details, and you probably do it because you obsess over detail, and you and your crew and your the guys that you collaborate with are all very obsessive over detail. But those details make all the difference in the world, and that's what really makes an
Yeah.
experience like a decent experience to one that's like a super superb experience that's very difficult to emulate.
I can't help myself. So like when I aim at something, I'm like, all right, well, what's the best we can do it? So like budgets last, as you can tell from Grand Street, that we weren't like competing with tattoo studios, competing with the best designed spaces that we've ever seen.
Yeah,
So like
Apple stores, things like that.
yeah, and I would challenge anybody to walk into an Apple store and then walk into Grand Street, and you're gonna be more impressive. You're gonna be more impressed by Grand Street.
Absolutely.
We really like we were trying to flex our creative muscle, and show how our brand translates not only from branding and an icon and a logo that you can identify with and a style of art, but also like how's that translate into space. So like Grand Street feels like our brand in space, without artwork on the wall. So it's minimalist, but to the extreme. You walk through a video tunnel, and like that that video's built and processed in 24K. It's hard to find any video
Jeez.
on earth that's made in 24K. And anyway, it's a humble brag. I'm really proud of that space.
Yeah,
So we
man, you
spent
should
10
be.
months on it, like nonstop.
You could just tell there was no sparing in the budget. It's super posh.
Yeah, and it's just how I operate. We don't have any investors. I don't have any partners. I own it. I fund everything, and it's just I do things because they should be done. So
Yeah.
I want people to have that confidence. And when I walked in your office today, like it's the best office I've seen.
Thanks, man.
That's what you want. Like, oh, they care about everything. That's the level of detail people want.
Totally. I tell people I'm the bang bang of dermatology, man.
that's a
uh,
that's cool to hear, man.
Listen, so just taking it back, because we were talking about this a little bit before we got on air. Like obviously you're a tremendous success, and that's what everybody sees. Like you're the guy. You are the guy in the field, or one of like the few guys. You're like the LeBron. All the top NBA players. Like you're in that category of tattoo artists. Um, and that's what people see. The thing that they don't see, and this is what really compelled me when I was kind of parsing through your story, is your response to adversity in your life. And there's been a ton of it. And that's what's I love that. Like I love that underdog story, against the odds, becoming successful against the odds, which really that's what your story is really all about. I mean, you came into this world with teenage parents, a relationship that was just destined not to succeed. They were kids. I mean, Jesus, I think your mom and dad were 16 or 17 when they had you. I don't know which one was 16, which one was 17, but I mean, I can imagine it. I'm like I'm 46, and I struggle to raise my kids. I can't imagine what it's like when you're 16 or 17 years old, and your dad split to go to college, and your mom was, I think she didn't graduate high school, or maybe she
No.
went back, but she was working to support you. You were living with a extended family, and then you guys moved, and it's to Delaware from Pennsylvania. And it's just you were living the projects. I think
Yeah.
there was zero chance for you to become the success that you are now.
I'll tell you, I still don't feel successful, and I probably never will. My reach exceeds my grasp always. So there's never an arrival point where I'm like, oh, I made it. This is where I was trying to get to. The moment I'm there, I have another point I'm reaching for. So like, I still have a chip on my shoulder. I still outwork everybody, and I'm deep down. Like as I've gotten older, I've become less so. But as I've gotten older, deep down I've become less so. But I'm competitive by nature because I have a chip on my shoulder. My mom raised me as a teenage parent by herself. She was a dancer till I was a teenager, and she owned a cleaning business. She owned a vitamin store. My mom hustled. She was a hard worker and a great person, but a child raising a child. And man, I just I don't know, man. There's something about me that doesn't feel like I've arrived. So
I love that.
yeah,
So
so
it's interesting because we're about 10 years apart. You're 35, I think, right?
yes, sir.
That's something I learned a lot later on in life. And I wish everyone has their own journey, and everyone kind of gets to where they are through their journey. If you're willing to keep your eyes open and be like sort of responsive to the universe, and that's my feeling now. Like it's you never get to a goal and be like, oh, cool, I'm done. It's always about setting a bigger and better goal for yourself, and that's obviously what you've done. And even despite the failures that you had, which we'll get into, which that's all part of the process. And I have a chip on my shoulder too. I think that's what inspires and drives hustle, man. Just
Mhm.
always knowing that there's something else, and it's not to beat somebody else or be competitive with somebody else. It's that being internally competitive, which
Well, it used to be. I had people I was aiming at. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna kick their ass, you know,
mhm,
and I did. And I realized like, well, that doesn't really make you happy. It's like that's kind of easy. It's low hanging fruit. S- People in tattooing that I would compete with, they're not working that hard. So it was like I learned to stop competing with people and start competing with my expectation. You know what I mean? Like competing with what I expect from myself. The guy in the mirror. That's who you're competing with. That's who I'm competing with. And so, you know, I don't even really like being compared to tattoo artists. I,
yeah,
they're not who I'm competing with, so I don't like the comparison. We do a different job often. I was a tattoo artist. Now I'm trying to manage one of the most famous skin companies in the world. That's
yeah,
what I'm trying to do. It's not anything about, it's so much less about tattooing and making tattoos on people. It's like I want to give the artists the best experience they can get so I can recruit the best artists, the best situation. I want them paid the most. I want the best assistant staff. I want everything taken care of for them so they can really focus on their art. And then on the other side, I want that same thing for the client. I want to create an environment where, the NFL's most, valuable player would be able to come into my store and feel comfortable and get that regular experience that they can't get anywhere else. Or the NBA's, finals MVP is coming in and they're able to like chill out and it's not a big deal. But at the same time, I want that electrician who saved all his money to get tattooed to come in and feel like a superstar. So I want to give everybody the thing they want, and so we're trying to curate experience. Human experience is something I'm really passionate about. I like making people happy. I like wowing people, not just with the art I make, but the company I run, the environment I have, and the brand. And as we build, you know, the the next thing I'm working on is always the biggest thing I'm working on. And so I have so many things in progress right now that the world doesn't know about that I think will change the world. So I'm as you mentioned, the goals get bigger. They also get longer. Like the term, if my goal was, when I was 18 years old, like, man, I'm going to work at this tattoo shop. I'm going to work for this guy, top of the mountain. I remember when I started when I was 18, Paul Booth was the godfather of modern tattooing. He owned a store called Last Rites, and to his credit, he gave tattooing the effort that few did, and branding, and he really led the way. And that was my goal when I was 18. I'm gonna work there someday.
that's in the East Village, right?
It's gone now.
Let's go now.
Yeah, pandemic crushed everything, didn't it? But I wanted to work for Paul. I got that job when I was 22, and I kind of hated it. And I remember thinking like, I need bigger goals. Like I didn't think I'd get that job at 22. I was a decade younger than anyone who'd ever worked for him. And I remember thinking like, man, I need to reevaluate what my goals are. Like you only realize how small your goals are when you reach them. And
Yeah.
I reached that goal really quickly, and it didn't make me happy. So I had to reevaluate what my goals were, and so I wanted to open the best tattoo shop in the world. And it took me a few years to do it, but I felt like I did that. And then when I opened the best tattoo shop in the world, it was on. I thought we got to that point with Broome Street, and when we kind of exceeded max capacity, we were at like 2 shifts per day, 17 artists working a day in a store that was built for five. Like we were at max capacity. We had to build another store. So now I started competing with myself. So when we built Grand Street, it was to compete with Broome Street, which was the best tattoo shop in the world. It was the most followed, great artists, best clientele, and already become a really famous brand. Um, and so I wanted to kick my own ass. So Grand Street, if you compare the two, I would recommend walking into Broome Street first, because if you walk in second, you'll go like, oh, this one's not as
Yeah, I've
great.
never been there actually. Yeah.
Well, when you go now, you'll go like, oh wow, this place is great, but I get it. Like
Yeah.
that place was built on a budget that was, an eighth of Grand Street's budget, and so, when we were competing with ourselves building Grand Street, and so, we really flexed on it.
You did. You did. I felt the flex, man. So, man, just going back though. So, someone. I mean, your dad went to college. I mean, but something there was like an academic vibe that I got like in your upbringing. Like you were underperforming like growing up, and
Yeah.
but your parents really expected you to academically perform. I mean, is that right?
Only
Is that-
my father. My mom
Okay.
didn't give a shit about school. She still doesn't. She knows what's important in life.
Yeah.
It's like happiness, joy, family, experience, and love, like being kind. My dad was really good at school and really focused on school and succeeded in school. It's like middle school, man, I was getting straight Fs. I got the receipts. You know what I mean? I think I had like F, 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 D in music, F. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a joke looking at my report card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But from a pure lack of effort.
Yeah, I was not
Yeah.
incapable, but I lived with my mom. So my dad lived in New York. I lived in Delaware with my mom. My mom didn't make me do school. She didn't give a shit. She didn't care if I went to school. She didn't.
Right.
She was dancing all night. She didn't know if I didn't go. She
Right.
got home at 2. So, I was expected at a young age to get myself ready and go to school. Man, I didn't give a shit,
Yeah.
So I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to run around with girls. You know what I mean? And so my pops, I remember I used to have to fax him every day my daily progress report.
Oh, really?
Dude.
So he was involved.
He tried to be, from a distance,
Yeah.
though.
Right.
I'll tell you, as a parent, I couldn't imagine being far from my kids.
Yeah.
I would do anything to be next to my kids.
Yeah.
I would sacrifice everything for my kids. So, to the best of his ability, he was involved.
He cared at least.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he cared. I think he cared in his way. He tried. We don't speak now for a number of reasons, but I'll say that when I was young, I felt his effort.
Mhm.
But it was always not the effort I needed. That's the thing with kids. It's the job of the parent to come to the child, not the job of the child to come to the
Absolutely.
parent. And that's the same thing with education. So I went through public school, and I failed miserably. And I wanted to go to boarding school. I wanted to go to all boys boarding school in high school because I wanted to take my life serious. I knew I had the ability
You felt that at like 12
in
years old?
middle school, like 12, 13 years old. I had gone to camp and I met kids who went to boarding school. I went to all boys camp and I was like, man, this is fun.
Where was the camp?
It was in Maine. It was
Oh,
called
you did?
Timonus, I think. it was
How'd you end up at camp?
My pop started to make money
So that's
when I
like a
was in
fancy
middle
thing,
school.
yeah.
Yeah. My pop started to make money in middle school. He was real broke when I was growing up. He was a college kid. Like I said,
Mhm.
my parents were kids. So I remember him coming to Delaware, making himself big things of pasta at his mom's house, driving to New York and, being a
Yeah.
college kid.
Right.
And struggling through that come up as an artist in New York City, a graphic designer in a time where computers were still new. It was a weird thing.
Mhm.
But he started to make some bread, and my opportunities opened up, things like camp, things like boarding school. I wanted to go to boarding school because I met kids at camp that were going to boarding school, and they said it was great. I was like, shit, boarding school sounds like camp. I like camp, So I went to check out schools, and I went to a school called South Kent. Coincidentally, I was kicked out twice, but I had a really great experience there. I learned a lot there. I
Are you
succeeded
tight with
there.
anyone from there still?
Yeah. They gave me an honorary diploma in 2015.
Nice.
It's fucking hilarious. I love it. It's the headmaster wrote me this really beautiful diploma, and I had an unconventional avenue to that diploma, but I think they felt I earned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think-
I got kicked out the second time for cheating on a Spanish test. And then I went back
Right.
to public school in Delaware, and I didn't give a shit again.
You never
know what I
finished,
mean?
right?
No,
Yeah.
I never finished high school. So
Well, talk to me a little bit about. So, I mean, there's like sort of like these aha moments in everyone's life. I imagine like the people you were rolling with at the private school were like, their parents were like well-to-do people, and they'd had kids, the kids of privilege.
Yeah.
How did that? Do you think that impacted your trajectory in any way? Like, because for me, like I had a major turning point when I was in high school. Like I was kind of like a fuck up like in middle school and stuff. I got suspended a bunch of times, and didn't do well academically. But then I fell in with a couple of guys who were like really smart and like really into academics, and they were cool guys. Like I really enjoyed hanging out with them. Still my best friends to this day. But they altered the trajectory of my life.
Mm,
And I can think back to like a few people that have done that, during the course of my life. I just because you were just rolling with such a diametrically opposed group of people to like what you were growing up with before that. In terms of like I'm not saying good people, bad people. I'm just saying in
yeah,
terms of like their ability to like just do shit and like have
right.
access to stuff. Did it change your perspective in any way, or did it, like the guys you're still friends with, or
I,
get yeah, I guess that would be guys.
yeah, I mean, no, I feel like I saw a little bit of a different upbringing from some people, but it was really diverse. There were kids from Russia, there were kids, who grew up in privilege, there were kids who didn't, there were some kids from the Bronx that, that came on scholarship. And so like South Kent did a really good job of diversifying the school. And so I fell into their high risk category,
Mhm.
right? So, we just so happened to have enough money to pay full tuition, but at the same time, like I came from that same level of uh privilege or lack thereof as some of the kids from the Bronx who were there on scholarship,
Mhm.
right? And so like although I made friends there, it didn't like create me opportunity. The things that created me opportunity were really tattooing created all my opportunity.
Right. Well, even you talk so just kind of fast forwarding a little bit. You went back home and you got kicked out of school for cheating on the Spanish test, and you were you basically started. You had some some I think you were working like Red Lobster or some shit like that, some stuff like that. But you ended up just devoting your life to being a tattoo artist.
Yeah.
But just going for a little further back from that, were you always like a very talented artist? I remember like when I was in elementary school, there were some kids that were just like fucking nasty at drawing like, whatever cartoons we were watching, or just had like this
Yeah.
natural ability. It was like such an impressive I'm still so impressed by like by visual art. Were you like one of those kids?
I was one of those kids who had the ability, but I was lazy. So I never really did art.
But could you like sketch like,
I could. I just didn't. I was disinterested. What developed my art skills was tattooing made me finish things. So I could draw, but I didn't because the moment I understood what I was trying to draw, I didn't have to draw it anymore. I don't have to try to draw it. And so I just didn't. I was more interested, growing up, more interested in playing basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
running
you had like a
around, goofing
natural
off.
talent though, right? Like
Yeah, I always felt that I was the most talented artist in school, but I wasn't the hardest worker. So I remember in middle school, there was like the Artist of the Year award, and I never won it. And I remember the kid who did win it, we grew up together, and I remember thinking, man, I'll kick this kid. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but he was the kid who drew all day, every day. I met him as an adult, and he was moving pianos. Not that there's anything wrong with
Yeah.
moving pianos, but his peak of his art career at that time was middle school,
Right.
high school,
Right.
and I was lucky that what drove me to become really uh, 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 decent at art was that when I start a tattoo, I have to finish it.
Right.
So my thing was like if I draw a face as a kid, I would draw an eye, and the eye would be beautiful, and I go, all right, I don't
Ah,
need to
cool,
draw
good.
anymore. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
enough. So very much, an amateur version of a Da Vinci sketchbook. It's not like fully
Right.
rendered art. It's like, what's the gist of what I'm trying to draw? What do I find? Oh, I think it's done. I'm disinterested. So I'd lose interest really
Right.
quickly. Tattooing made me maintain interest.
Right. And focus. Yeah, it's interesting. Anyone who's like successful in anything, and it could be like in any walk of life, whether like you're an athlete or an artist, doctor, whatever it is, there's always some of that. There's always like this like you're kind of like dancing around your potential until like something really motivates you to be like for you is like finishing the tattoo is what really your art came to fruition because you were kind of forced to do it. I think like when I got to med school, like academically is when I kind of was forced to meet my potential. Even though I was kind of just dancing around that like up until then.
It's do or die.
So
Do it
yeah,
or fail.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then I was like, oh shit, I'm pretty good at this actually. Like
Yeah.
or I'm a smart, I'm a, like I'm a smarter guy than I thought I was.
Mhm.
Those wins add up. So I'm sure like with each tattoo you did, it's like oh, like
Well, you're also taught as a child in America, like your success in education is your success as a human being, and it's just not the truth. And so we're taught that the most successful kids are the ones who are good at school. It's just not true. It's just not true. The most successful adults are not the ones who are good at school. It's just not the truth. And so, in fact, it's so far from the opposite. It's your social intelligence matters, because this world, this life is about experience with people. You know that saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, it's true. But it's not who you know. It's like, how do you relate to people? How can you work together with people? You can't do anything great in this world by yourself. You need to work with people. And so your social intelligence matters so much more than your academic intelligence
I
in
mean,
life.
that's so well said, man. You know, EQ is much more important than IQ. I talk about that a lot. I think that's why I think I'm like a good dermatologist, but I can interact with people in a really just humane, present way, and that's what makes you good at what you do. That's what makes me good at what I do. What makes anyone. That's the X factor, right?
Yeah,
And it's true. Like, academic success plays no role in that. That's not to say if you're academically successful, you can't be successful.
totally.
But yeah, a lot of the most successful people I know actually are folks that weren't that wasn't their success point, like academics. It's whatever they did with people, with business, that sort of stuff. So very, very true, man. Um, so go back to like your specific style of tattooing. So I think I'm not sure if you learned this from another tattoo artist, or like you're seeing other tattoos. You became very famous for like very detailed, like these like sort of like the wispy, like just really stuff that folks weren't used to seeing. So much so that when you came to New York to be a tattoo artist, folks were like, this shit's not even real. Like, this is some, no one
Yeah.
could believe that you were actually creating tattoos like that.
I was a kid, and I was doing things that were not. I mean, now I giggle at them, but I was doing things that 19-year-olds weren't doing. And so when I brought my portfolio to get jobs,
It's like, what kind of
most of
stuff, just for folks that aren't really familiar?
I was doing realism, which when I started tattooing in 2004, 2005, I think it's 2004. When I started tattooing, realism was not common. It's still not common. The common tattooing is Americana traditional tattooing. And you go to any state and you'll find a handful of artists that do their version of traditional Americana tattooing. Think Sailor Jerry, or even in New York City they do a punk version of Japanese style tattooing in the 90s and early 2000s. And some of those most famous New York City tattooers still doing that. The guys who made Miami Ink and the famous tattoo shops before we started working, they weren't realism based. And so when I was doing realism as a kid who was tattooing for 8 months, um, yeah, but people didn't believe I was making those images in my portfolio, and so I couldn't get a job for weeks. Kept going, kept going, kept going. Finally, somebody gave me a job, and quickly, so I worked on this strip in New York City on West Fourth
Yeah, my
Street.
office is right near there. I'm up
Yeah,
at the 10th.
so
Yeah,
West Fourth's
yeah.
like
The
it's a little cringy.
The Gray's Papaya on the corner.
It's a little
Yeah.
cringy. So my store was called the store I worked in was called Crazy Fantasy, and right next door was called Fantasy Party. It was a sex shop. So tattoo shop attached
Yeah.
to a sex shop, same branding, and it was 4 tattoo artists in a room this big, and we were crammed in there. It was filthy. It was gross at the time. I don't know what it's like now. Don't sue me. We shared a bathroom. We had to go in the sex shop. Down the basement, we shared a bathroom with Grace Papaya, and there were roaches everywhere. It was wild. And yeah, that was my training day. You know
Yeah,
what I
man.
mean? But so I very much started from the bottom of tattooing. Before that, my first job was outside of a trailer park
Yeah.
in Delaware, and so like I got to see every bit of tattooing every step of the way, and I met great teachers along the way. And so much of my success and my ability to tattoo came from people being open to share their knowledge with me. And I was always the kid, like I mentioned, when I worked at Last Rites, I was a decade younger than anyone that ever worked there. And so I was kind of always the kid. Now I'm the OG. Yes.
You're still a kid to me, man.
For sure. But I think I'm not the oldest one in my store, but I'm up there now. Now
Yeah.
I've got kids that are fucking Kozo is like 24 years old, and Oscar's, in his early 20s, and these guys are superstars, and I'm like, man, I was not that good when I was their age. The bar has moved, set by these young guys. Yeah.
Well, talk to me about when you started like making there were unique tattoos at the time. Like, folks weren't used to seeing that sort of stuff. Would you look very much with my tattoo when I told Trudy, like, well, this is kind of what I want. Like, she created something that was just so much more special than I could conceive of in my head. Was that something, where folks tell you, "Hey, I wanna do this," and you would have to, like, present this idea to them? Because they weren't used to seeing that. It's not like they're like, in their mind, what they thought their tattoo was gonna look like was probably
Yeah.
very different than what you were creating for them.
I've always tried to rethink the idea. And so early on, I was just in Miami the other day and I bumped into a guy who was getting tattooed by me when I was 19 in my apartment. Uh, MJ was with me. We meet this guy. He goes, "I know you." He's got a mask on. I'm like, I just thought it was some like a fan. It happens. I was like, thanks so much, bro. He goes, no. I know you. You know me. I was like, how? Takes his mask off. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, he's like, you tattooed me in your apartment. And as soon as he said that, I was like, well, I was 19 years old because I haven't tattooed my house for fucking years. And he pulls up his arm and I was like, oh shit. We made a cross on his arm and a rosary, and the cross was just made out of flowers. And although that might not blow anyone's mind, at the time and at my age and where tattooing was at the time, it was a taboo thing to make a shape out of imagery. So, when I was taught tattooing, I was taught a set of rules that don't exist now. And I liked breaking those rules. So early on. So the first things I made were really experimental.
Did you tell him that? This guy, like, do you remember, like, the conversation, like, "Hey, I wanna make this cross out of flowers"? Because I don't think he came to you and said, "I want a cross out of flowers."
No, he came to me. He's like,
A cross.
I want the Tupac cross.
Right.
I was like, all right, well, that's easy, but let's make it fun. And so it was more of like, always been, well, how do I get interested in making it?
Right.
So like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make your sandwich for you.
Yeah.
I'll make a meal for you.
Yeah.
If you
I
want
love
to
that.
try it.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of trust. I've had people get up and go, I don't really like. Well, it's on you now, dog.
Oh,
You know
really?
what I
That's
mean?
happened?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because I'm creating something that people can't imagine.
Yeah.
And sometimes the things they imagine aren't the thing I imagine. Like it's happened. I've tattooed for 17 years,
Yeah.
so there's only a handful of those people. But yeah, first time I tattooed Lewis Hamilton, he got up in the mirror. He goes, "Man, I don't really like the way." I was like, "Well, it ain't coming out, dog." So now he loves his tattoo. But
Yeah.
there's a shock reaction of like sometimes like this isn't the thing I expected in some way, shape, or form. It never bothered me because I know it's dope.
Yeah.
So if it takes you a minute to come around to knowing it's dope, that's fine.
Right.
My favorite restaurant, I remember back in the day, I would always come, I'd order something, and they'd bring me something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
let me bring the chef,
Yeah.
And I remember they brought me this dish once that I thought was fucking gross. And I was like, well, I gotta eat it because they sent it to
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean? And I wound up ordering it every single time
crazy.
because it took me a minute to understand the brilliance of that
You
thing.
refined your palate. Yeah.
It really, really like became my favorite thing when it took off the menu. I was like, well, and I just remember like, I wasn't ready for it. I didn't, you know what I mean? And so like sometimes, people's mind aren't ready for something. Their ability to understand design or their style or how it fits or matches them, sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah, which is a weird thing with tattooing.
Yeah.
But I've never like lost sleep over it. I'm like, oh, they'll get it. It's dope.
I love that.
I know it's dope.
I love what you said also about you having to be interested in the tattoo. Like, I'm not gonna make your sandwich, I'll make you a meal. This is fun, and I don't mean to keep talking about myself. I'm not narcissistic, but when I was talking to Trudy, like Trudy said, because I had all these abstract ideas that I wanted to do with the Ganesh, and she's like, well, if it's not like really, really, she's like, I'm really much more doing into like detailed stuff, And I was like, all right, cool. I said, I totally trust you, like, whatever your vision is. And like I said, in my mind, what she created was so much better than anything I could think of.
But not everyone has that ability to go, okay, I trust you. Some people need to hold the wheel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the nervous flyers. It's like, man, that guy flying that airplane, this is a tour bus to him.
Yeah.
That person up there is a superstar at what they're doing. Trust them. You know what I mean? You don't want that wheel, And so sometimes like, it's hard for people to let go of control. And those are the people that will design themselves a bad tattoo. And the artists who will let them do it are failing them in that way. And so I don't let people art direct a bad tattoo. I'll say, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. And, I think that's really what distinguishes your brand, actually, because I feel like all of the artists are engaged with the art that they're creating on folks, which is,
and they're allowed to say no.
Yeah, which I love. Like, that's a big part of the vetting process. Like I think actually the first tattoo, this is like years ago when I wanted to get a bang to it. And it took me 3 years to get the guts to do it. But I think I requested Jay Shin or something like that initially. He does all the birds and stuff, right? Like the
Really fine
yeah,
detail.
amazing.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Nah, I'm not really interested in doing it."
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah,
Yeah. And they also might be burnt out on the subject matter.
yeah,
You know, how many fucking Archangel Michaels you can do
yeah,
before you're like, I don't think I can do that better.
right,
You know,
yeah,
like I think I got to stop taking that subject matter,
yeah,
you know? And so, how many portraits of Pietà have I done in my career? I don't know that I could do it better unless somebody really lets me be free.
right,
And so I've done so many of them now. If I do it, I want it to be distorted, or I want to blur it, or I want to put a smear through it, or I want to, like, in some way, this has to be yours. I don't want to do the same tattoo I did when I was 19 years old. I want, I want to make something really unique. I want to be interested. If I'm
yeah.
not interested, it's not going to be great. I'm going to be bored as hell.
I totally get it, man.
But also the person matters. So the subject matters, but the person matters. Like, if you suck, I don't want to tattoo you. I got to spend time with you. I want to like you. And I don't need to tattoo. None of us do. And luckily we're in a position where we're not struggling to put people in our chair. So there's a long list of people. And so, like, if somebody kind of sucks, it's like, well, no soup for you, right?
Yeah.
That famous
yeah.
soup spot in New York City. Get them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. So I'm at the sort of the point of my career where if a patient's like being like just a negative energy, bringing negative energy to the practice, we just discharge them. Like, listen, there's like a million dermatologists in New York. You can just
go find the one you love. We're not the one for you.
You have to vibe with,
and we try. Like, if somebody doesn't vibe with somebody, they're allowed to pass them to another artist. And so we get that sometimes. And Trudy's wonderful with this. She takes a lot of the, PETA is what they call them in restaurants, pain in the ass. Right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean like people are allowed to ask a million questions. We want that. We want people to feel comfortable. We want to make them comfortable. Sometimes there are people who you can't make happy. Yeah. Sometimes there are people who aren't ready for a tattoo. They want one, but they're not ready for one. And so they're not ready to let go of that control and trust that artist in their process. And if the artist doesn't feel 100% about making it, like, they're supposed to stop right away. Like, if they're unsure, they stop right away, because the only thing that happens if they continue is, like, the end result they're not happy with. And so, like, we don't want to make anybody unhappy. We don't want your money that bad. We want you to be happy. If we don't think we can make you happy, we should stop before we tattoo you, because it's going to get worse. You know what I mean? So, we're just protective of the artist's experience. They got to be in their flow. We're protective of the client and their happiness. We want you to be happy. If we're not confident that we can give you the thing that will make you happy, like, we shouldn't do it. Like, pause immediately.
Yeah, that's a very evolved way to run your business, and more businesses should learn from that and do that, because it's important. Like I said when we were starting the podcast, your response to failure is something that really was very compelling to me. And we talked about some of them. I kicked out. Well, you're tough upbringing. You kicked out of boarding school, which is like it was your dream to go to boarding school. Come to New York, can't get a job. You get a job. There, and then this is like, I don't know if this is the actual truth, but like all of the things that you read in the media and stuff is like that Rihanna tattoo is what kind of like flipped the switch.
A little bit. I tattooed Rihanna before she was a fashion icon, superstar, megastar. It was like Ponde Replay was out, and then Umbrella just dropped.
Yeah.
But like Jay-Z was kind of known for bringing artists up and putting them on, and I struggle to think of ones that ascended like she did. You think of Kanye, maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, did Jay-Z put Kanye on? I don't know. Maybe he brought him to, New York in our, mass culture. We all love Jay-Z. We learned of Kanye. Many of us learned of Kanye because of him. Many of us learned about Rihanna because of Jay-Z. And so when I tattooed like some Sanskrit on her hip,
which was your creative vision. She actually wanted something different, I believe, right?
We were gonna put it on the back of her leg, but she's bow-legged as fuck. She won't be mad at me for saying it. Everybody's anatomy is different. So if your legs are straight up and down, that works. It's very linear. If your legs have any slight curve to it, if I follow your leg, now we're showing
right
an angle we don't want to show, right? Your tattoo's gonna be pointed this way.
It
should be vertical. So I've always fished for interesting spots on the body. I don't know why. It's just like we're taught to put things here. We're taught to stand straight to your side and put it on the side of your arm. Well, we don't perceive people in that way. I see the front half of you. So why would I stand to the side of you and place the thing on the side of your arm?
Yeah.
So I'm like, how do I perceive this body? What are the unique shapes? How do I accent shapes? How do I complement shapes? How do I hide shapes that someone would want hidden? How do I make this appealing to the eye in every way, right? And so with her in that body placement, like that we chose, and really all of her tattoos, they're really unique placements.
Yeah.
And
Like
so
a little gun that's over here. And
so the gun is really what, interestingly, that was the first photo of Rihanna after, after she was in some tough shit,
Mhm.
And so when I did this tattoo, I put it on MySpace. Fucking CNN was calling me in the middle of the night. Rihanna got a gun tattoo. What is it about? Is it about this? Is it about that? And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. My name's Bang Bang. She came in with a gun necklace, 2 years earlier. And I was like, we should do a little gun on you. Right. And we just ended up doing it. It wasn't about anything other than let's do this little dope little gun.
Yeah.
It wasn't that deep. But people want to make everything celebrities do into some really deep thing and want
Right.
to create a narrative that's non-existent.
Right.
And so I wound up getting thrown into press playing defense with something I'd never done before. I'd never been in press. I never did PR. I never did marketing. I was a kid. And so I was learning how to manage crisis in this mode so that the story didn't become something negative about her and her life and why she got this tattoo. It was like, I learned a lot in that moment. I also made a lot of connections in press in that moment. So I learned the interest that press and media had in celebrities. This was still pre-Instagram. MySpace was still like, people had MySpace, but that wasn't what social media is now. And so magazines were interested in this photo. And they, I learned whenever I tattooed somebody, I could control the narrative and I could bridge the gap. My goal became to bridge the gap between fashion and tattooing. Fashion magazines wanted to know what they were getting tattooed. And so I'd say, you can use this photo if you write this article. And so here's what it needs to say. Here's how it needs to say. You need to put it on the website. My name needs to be hyperlinked to here. And I learned how to do PR and media myself because I controlled these images that media wanted. And so I could set stipulations to anything I wanted, and I could make sure that the narrative was positive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of, this drunken tattoo night, which is what people were equating tattooing to. It was style and design and unique and expression.
I think that picture with the gun was like Vogue or something like that, right? Or
all
something.
over. Yeah, you name it. Yeah, I would think that I mean, thousands of magazine covers. The tattoos I've done have been on the front because the people I'm tattooing are setting style trends, And so, God, thank God for Rihanna. She carried tattooing in a way that only like Angelina Jolie had previously. So the 90s, like the it girl got a tattoo and it became style.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, wow, that girl that everybody's in love with for her style and her ability and her talent is getting tattooed.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's okay. Right. And so Rihanna came and did that.
Did you know who she was when she came in?
Fuck no. Just knew she was some singer, But there's a lot of singers in New York City. Like, people make music, they're on the radio. Okay, cool. Nice to meet you,
Right.
But like, she wrote the foreword of my book, and her impression of me was that I didn't give a fuck who she was. This is what she said.
She said you were a gangster, man.
She said I was gangster. Yeah. And I'm still that way. I don't give a shit who people think you are. Are you kind? What do you like? Are you nice? Do you want something cool? I'm humbled that you want it from me, Like, and that's it. It's not like, how famous is this person?
Right.
So many people I met, I didn't know anything about him. I mean, I knew Justin Bieber was like a YouTube guy.
Yeah.
I met Bieber when he was 18 and tattooed him, but I live under a rock of tattooing and trying to succeed in this taboo industry. So, like, I met Katy Perry. I just knew that she saying I kissed a girl and I liked it.
Yeah.
Those are the only things I knew of
Right.
people. But I never really did a ton of homework on these people until I met them, decided I like them. Now I'm a fan of them. So I'm a fan of their work. So, you know, like I'd listen to a bunch of Rihanna music after I met her, knew her, and she was my friend.
Right, you were compelled to do a deeper dive. You know?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm not I don't know what the word is, socialite. I don't know what the fuck. I don't go to clubs. I don't go. You know, all of my success or perceived success has been really organic from just focusing on the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
which is the way it's sustainable. You know, that's the only way it's sustainable.
But a lot of people do it the other way around. I watch the, you know, people trying to meet people, to get work on those people, to, you know, to do whatever they can to find the people who will help them get the thing they want, which is attention, you know. And I never really chased attention, still don't. I'm like much more interested in respect. It sustains longer, you know.
Man. Absolutely. So talk to me about now, like when you opened your first shop, man. So I know like your first Bang Bang, you know, it was tough, and that was you learn from that experience, but it was it wasn't a success the first Bang Bang.
Well, the first Bang Bang store wasn't mine, and it was a success. It was really successful, but it wasn't my success. A family member, you know, came to me and was like, "Hey, let's open a store." You know, I had this client list that was mega. I was the busiest artist in New York City at the time. I was still really young. And
how old were you at the time?
Shit, like 26, something like that.
Man. Yeah.
Maybe a little younger. This is 20, like 13. Like
Your mid-20s.
Yeah, I know. A long time ago.
Yeah.
It came to me. I was living in a little basement apartment, grinding, you know, tattooing, booked for 6 months. So
that mean you're tattooing every day, like you're Monday through Friday? Like when you say book for 6 months,
I mean, I work.
Do you allocate like 5 days a week, or you do it?
I was working 6 and 7 days a week. I was a lunatic. I was working more than anyone because it was that, you know, man, Michael Jordan was my idol growing up. Like I wanted to be the GOAT.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wanted to outwork everybody. I wanted the gap between, you know, I wanted to be number one, and I wanted the gap between me and number two to be so large there was no argument. That was my competitive mindset. And so, like, I could sit down and tattoo. I was a decade younger than everybody I worked with. I could tattoo longer. I could work harder. I had more energy and more inspiration and more fire to do it because I was chasing this thing. And so, you know, that pissed some people off, and some people it didn't. Some people congratulated and loved my work ethic, but I put in the hard work, and I would tattoo
there's this line that I read the other day. It's like, no one who's working harder than you will ever say something about your work. You know, it's only people who work less than you.
Yeah,
right?
It's true. It's true. I caught a lot of shit. You know, I was half the age of some of the people that I worked with, and I felt I was twice as talented. But beyond that, like I felt like I had 10 times the motivation and work ethic.
Yeah.
And although, you know, I had a lot of work to do, I wasn't scared of it. I wasn't scared of doing the hard work. I wasn't scared to go home every night while everybody else went out. I wasn't scared to prepare mentally for the next day and do it every day, all day, relentlessly, because I knew what my goal was. I wanted that top spot. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Tattooing, man.
That's what I wanted. Yeah. And so, you know, and I didn't feel like I was there. I don't know. I don't think about it much now. Like people tell me that's where I am now, and I don't give myself much thought. You know, you get older, you're like, you know, people are like, how do you perceive yourself? Well, I don't perceive myself at all. Perceive the room, my team, my crew. I'm in awe of these people, and I'm flattered that they let me lead the way. But, you know, so much of my success is my team of people. Like, it's not what I've done. Bang Bang's running right now. Without me, I don't even know what's going on. It's running to the degree of the experience you got, you know? And that has nothing to do with me today. It has to do with me years ago setting it up, making that machine. But the talented people who do it all day, who run that store, who operate, who tattoo in that store under our flag, like, that is why we're successful. So like all credit to them. So that's another reason why like, I don't have time to sit around and perceive like myself. That's like you lose your ego when you get older. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It's like ego doesn't make money.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
that's true. Plus, you got a lot of shit going. I mean, there's like we've just like private conversations that we've had. You have a lot on your plate. You're moving. So you don't have time to sit around and think, ponder. So just continue that thought though. So you're like working 6 or 7 days a week,
and I get the call from it was my pops. Hey, I want to open a Bang Bang store. All right, let's do it. Here's my criteria. It's got to feel like me, and I've got final call and everything. All right, cool. We rush into it.
Were you making pretty serious coin at that point?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah. But neither were tattoo artists.
Right.
So I had the highest price point in tattooing at the time. It was $300 an hour.
Okay.
Now that would be a deal, from a really well sought after tattoo artist. So we've kind of changed that metric of pricing because after taxes, you have a family, insurance, and retirement. Like it turns into nothing in New York City.
Yeah.
$300 an hour turns into nothing. So it sounds crazy to.
No, but you have serious overhead, man. I'm a senior space, man.
But even when I didn't though, like if I charge $300 an hour and I were 5 billable hours over 8 hours of tattooing, turns into $1,500. You give the store you work for half that money, you make $750 a day. It sounds like a lot. Insurance costs fucking $2,200 a month. Your rent costs, your car insurance, your extra medical bills. Having kids. Like my wife was a stay-at-home mom. Thankfully, she made that sacrifice and did that, and all credit to her for doing it because our kids are wonderful because of it. And like it turns into like it's hard to survive,
Mm-hmm.
and so that needed to change.
Mm-hmm.
But I get the call, let's do this thing. I'm like, all right, here's my criteria. We search for spaces, we find spaces, they rent it, it's all in their name. They trademark the name Bang Bang for tattooing. They they control and run it. And I'm a tattoo artist. I'm the face of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no ownership.
You were the only tattoo artist at that time?
No, we had 4 other guys, and it did succeed. And even before we were open, before we had furniture inside, I'll tell you, it took 8 months to get furniture inside. These people were not at my pace.
Mm-hmm.
And so my pops and his business partner, were not in my eyes working at the pace in which I was mentally working, physically working. And 8 months we're in there tattooing like with nothing inside, furniture, like Rihanna's coming in, Justin Bieber's coming in. I'm like, yo, we need furniture. What are we doing here? They're running around trying to get free furniture and sponsorships. And people, let's buy furniture. Let's build shit. Let's go. And so, instead of like playing this social game of like, who do we know that can give us, some sponsored, man,
right?
You can't rely on other people to get where you're trying to go. You gotta go. You gotta go now. You gotta go fast. Iron's hot. You know what I mean?
Go to Goodell.
And so it became this struggle of like, all right, I stayed patient. I tried to be cool. My name's on the door, but I'm in this environment where like, man, I don't know what's going on with the bills. My name's not on any accounts. I don't own the trademark. I'm not the boss. You know what I mean? I'm the face. And so the roles they were supposed to do, it really boiled over. My wife was pregnant. We didn't have insurance taken care of. And I'm like, we need insurance. This is what we agreed to. This is, now my wife's 8 months pregnant. We still don't have the insurance.
Wow.
We still have furniture inside. We rented a space. I'm tattooing it. It's making profit. And we weren't there. And I was like, it came to a head at like, I bought a vase. Put it in the lobby. My pops took it downstairs. He was like, I don't like that. I was like, my name's on the door. I can't. It made a click. Like, oh, I work for you. I work for you. I'm not working for you. So I told him, I was like, man, I'm not happy. I don't want to do this. I want to buy you out. My pop's response to me was, I own your name. I'll run it without you. Hung up the phone.
Oh shit.
It was wild, and I didn't expect it because I was like. Came to it mature. I gave it so much thought. I was so unhappy, and you to get that response was like, you just don't expect it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I didn't expect it. And it felt like money was doing something weird. I knew there was some drug use, some drinking, some weird behavior, but money might have been the worst drug. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but I never made any money other than what I made as a tattoo artist.
Right.
I never had any ownership or rights to it other than like, I was told I was a partner. That wasn't reality. And so it came down to like them trying to get me to sign this contract that just would have put handcuffs on me. And not the kind of handcuffs you want. You want golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you
This
read
is
the
like,
contract? Did you hire like an attorney? Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I wound up calling a dear friend of mine who was a professional athlete.
Uh-huh.
Like, I had never seen a contract
Right.
before. I got kicked out of high school. Fuck, what's a contract? But the only thing I could think of is like athletes,
Right.
talent,
Yeah.
right? So I called my friend who I had met, Christian Carino, who's now my agent. He's the most famous
Oh, wow.
agent in the world. And, I don't know how I tricked him into signing me, but he's done every of the biggest deal ever. But I was calling Christian when I was young, like, man, this is scaring me. I don't know what to do. He was a client of mine, he was a friend of mine, but we didn't work together. I don't even know if I knew what a superstar Christian was, but he always took the time for me. There's those people in the world who don't have anything to gain from you, but will help you.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you have to find.
Friends. They're called friends.
Really,
Yeah.
really. And I was lost. And people like Christian, Omar Johnson, who was the CMO of Beats by Dre, and before that Nike, and now he owns Opus. I was calling, my friend Thierry Henry. I was calling Christian Carino. I was calling Omar Johnson. I was calling these people, and Karen Bridboard, who's a psychologist, who's helping me get through this
Yeah.
crazy time. And now she's one of my business managers. I'm calling these core people of like, man, I don't know what to do. Can you help me navigate this? Like, and those people were really like, I was calling them every day to try to figure this shit out. They were the only people I would know had any knowledge of contracts, and they helped me navigate to it. I thought that I was trapped. I was getting threatened to be sued. I was getting lawyer. You don't expect this shit
Jeez,
from your
man.
pops. You know what I mean? Especially after like they invested 50 grand. Fucking 50 grand is like a watch one of my clients doesn't wear anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's money, but this is not like sue your son over.
Right.
And especially like I wasn't like, I'm quitting, I'm out. I want to buy you out. I don't want
Right.
to work with you in this capacity. So it was a struggle. And I'm sure he sees it different, but from my perspective, it was like I wasn't happy. I wanted to go. And it was a struggle to get out of it.
Was it the same logo you have now? Like, did you have to buy that? No.
Nah. They owned the trademark of the name, to which I won that from prior use proof. So I got to cancel their trademark and secure my trademark and own the name Bang Bang.
Was it expensive to do that?
Nah, it was really like, do you have first use proof?
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I was 18 years old, I made an email, bangbangtattoos at yahoo.com. Shit. Don't email me that. Email's dead. I'm not checking it. So yeah, I don't even use that email anymore. So, but that first use proof, when I was 18, I got guns tattooed on my neck and said Bang Bang.
Yeah.
The name came from somebody making fun of me for it, and I just stuck. So when I had that first use proof, I could cancel their registration and secure it myself. And that was my first win.
Right.
Cool.
So you're no longer tattooing there at that point? Like it was done?
I showed up as we were negotiating the buyout. It was really ugly. They wanted 240 grand. And then all these stipulations of, I can't fully go into it, but it was like there were penalties if I were late, and they were trying to get me to, it felt like they were trying to screw me into more money. It really was. And at the 11th hour, it was like, this motherfucker's on vacation in Mexico. I'm like bleeding, trying to scrap every dollar I can, beg, borrow, and stealing anything I can, and trying to get this fucker the money he wants. And at the 11th hour, we just found out the lawyers were like, no, you got to run. You can't buy this because X. I can't speak more to why, but it was like, oh man, they're really trying to shake me down. Fuck it, I'm out. I took my money, rented Broome Street, built Broome Street in 57 days from lease signing to opening, did everything the right way, insured everything that wasn't done previously and correctly. We did it. We handled it. Business managers, accountants. But we actually built things. We made a custom space.
Did you have to borrow money to do that, man?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. It's another thing. I can't speak to a ton, but I can say that I had help.
Like bank loans or just
I
like,
had help. No,
okay,
just friends, dear
cool.
friends helped me.
Yeah.
You know, and I couldn't have. I would have. It would have failed if I didn't have the
Sure,
help
man.
of some of those people that I mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. And you know, these people are my saints.
Yeah, man.
You know, not only like emotionally, but in some cases, some of those people financially helped. You know.
Were you in therapy during any of this stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was going nuts. I was going nuts. I didn't know how to navigate this. I was going crazy. I was like, I remember getting out of my car, wishing I'd just get hit by a car. Like
Yeah.
it was hard.
There's so many heavy elements to that time in your life.
Man, it was tough. And you know, my my wife was pregnant. I had a newborn.
Wow.
I had a 4-year-old already, and these people were counting on me. There were employees looking at me like, "When are we
Yeah.
open? What are we doing? What are we?" So during that negotiation, that tough negotiation of buyout, or the proposed buyout, like we showed up one day and the locks were changed. We were
Jeez.
working the day before, and we came and the locks were changed. We're like, "The fuck?" Call locksmith. They were like, "You know, you got to show me the lease. I can't just open this for you." I Google myself, like,
Yeah.
"Look, bro, this is it." And I actually left because I was like, this is such a legal thing. I can't be around for this.
Yeah.
So, you know, somebody who worked with me got the locksmith to do the thing, open the door, and it was empty. It was all
Oh,
gone.
wow.
And overnight, they came in and wiped the shit out, painted everything, stole a bunch of my equipment. My tattoo machines were gone. Other artist shit was gone. It was the ugliest thing I'd ever
Oh,
seen,
man.
and really unforgivable. And man, it just a colossal failure. You know what I mean? And I was there with nothing.
This is all in 2013
I think
also?
that happened in like 13 or 14. Yeah,
Okay.
sounds about right.
And then so from there, like, were you working on the new location like simultaneously?
So from there, from the locks getting changed, that was really their power move to make me agree to buy out, right?
Yeah.
So we've been negotiating
Like
a
you don't have
little
a
bit
place to
more
work
while
now. Right.
I
Yeah.
went and worked for some friends, you know, this, that, and the other. But it was crazy. Like through all that, I was still tattooing at a pace that nobody could keep up with. The stores weren't open long enough. Like their employees, their doors were not unlocked long enough for me to tattoo as much as I wanted to.
Wow.
So like I had to go to another store. And the same thing, like they just weren't open as much as I would even tattoo.
Was it
And so
therapeutic for you tattooing? Like kind of just doing your, or was it just like a means to an end? Like, yeah. I mean, obviously you love doing it, but
it
you had
gave
to
me
do it.
confidence.
Okay.
It gave me confidence in like I could still make great tattoos.
Right.
And it was like, you know, my tattoo machines went missing. Well, I could still make beautiful tattoos without my tools. You know,
Mhm.
like it's not the shoes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like I was
yeah.
thinking of Jordan. It's not the
Right.
shoes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's me. I'm the one who has this ability. I can do it, you know? So making great tattoos gave me great confidence, you know, because everything else was falling apart.
Right.
But
It's one thing you can have full control over.
exactly. And so, you know, the 11th hour, the lawyers are like, no, bail. And, you know, they threatened this, that, the other. But at that point, like, I understood I was not in trouble. They were in trouble because they fucked up. Um, and I took an aggressive stance of, you don't want to fuck with me. Now I got lawyers. Now I got people. Now I understand the situation. I dare you. Fuck around and find out. So I became real aggressive. But like, you're not gonna bully me anymore. Like, I'll whoop your ass. I dare you. You know? And so it gave me this real aggressive chip on my shoulder, and I became like I had a bad guy. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna kick somebody's ass now. So that really helped me in that time of like, you know, I had a reason other than obviously my desired success or even
Right.
my family or
Just
my
someone to
kids.
crush.
It was like I got somebody
Yeah.
to crush. And you know, I'm gonna run up the score, you know?
Yeah.
Um
You're still
and
trying in the fourth quarter.
yeah.
It's already blowout.
And it added to the people because every time I left the store, it was like, anytime I ever left working for somebody, it was like, oh, you're the best employee we have, you're the best earner, you're the hardest worker, you're this, you're that, and I stopped making you money and it's fuck you. You know? And I realized like, ew, that's
Yeah.
gross. I got that experience so many times.
Yeah.
And now, like, as I run my company, I'm the opposite. You don't want to work for me anymore? Yo, good luck.
Yeah.
I'll do anything for you. I'll do anything for you. You want to open your own store? Let me know how I can help. You want to go work somewhere else? Yo, I got nothing but love. Like, it's all good. I am now that guy who I had
You wish
wished.
you had. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, like,
I love that, man.
yeah, man, it ain't all about money. I don't give a fuck about money. Like, if I wanted money, I'd have 500 tattoo artists employed right now. I got 30 of the best people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I want to go down that road a little bit because one of the things I follow you guys on social media. I love it. What I love most about it though is the culture that you've created because I see like you guys will go out for like happy hour and just do cool shit, go to Great Adventure or go to as a group, as a collective.
Yeah.
So it's always like the same, like it's like a crew of like 8 or 10 folks that are always rolling together at these like really fun events, having drinks together, partying together.
Well, I'd like if
And
all 30 of them came, but not everybody likes the same shit. So when we
yeah,
play paintball and some people hang behind, they don't want to get shot. We go cruising, some people don't want to be on a boat.
right.
We go to Disney, some people are like, I don't want to get.
But you do a lot of that, and
Yeah.
the culture. It's just such a beautiful thing to see. It's very inspiring for me as an employer to see things like that. Because it really makes a big difference. Like you have to be socially connected with your people, and you guys have to be friends. And a lot of folks will say that that's not a good way to run a business. That you can't be friends with your employees. I think that's the only way to really run a business.
Yeah, I disagree. I'll tell you, I'm not friends with everybody who I work with because there's a line, right? Our staff is there to do their job, and if they're too, and I don't mean staff as in our artists, our staff, our associate staff, our back of house staff, like there's a line, and so that line is right there. If you're an employee, it's a different relationship. Right. Now our contractors are different. I get to hire my friends. I get to hire people I would want to hang out with. Right. So I get to vet
who you admire. They're your peers.
I'm like starstruck oftentimes. I'm like at a prep station with like 3 of the best tattoo artists in the world, and I'm like, fuck, man, I'm on this team. Like that feels good.
It's like the Avengers of tattooing.
Yeah, I've heard this before. It's kind of true though, and there's no ego. There's no competition. None of these guys are competing with each other, which is something I always experienced throughout tattooing. Who's busier, who's making more money, or who has a bigger Instagram. Nobody gives a shit. We're busy. It's not like who's booked for 6 months. Man, you're booked tomorrow. Yeah. Everybody's booked tomorrow. It doesn't matter how, you don't want to be booked for 6 months. God forbid you get sick. Now you're, fucked for 4 months. You know what I mean? So, we're in an awesome position where like, there's no egos. Everybody's rooting for everybody. Everybody does something different and they do it well,
Tell me a little about COVID, man. Like when the shit went down, like you guys had to completely shut down for how long?
4 or 5 months. That was wild. Meanwhile, the governor's, shutting us down. He's trying to fuck his, assistants. Yeah. You know what I mean? Man. This fucking guy. It's just mind boggling.
Did you come out of it
what these people did to New York?
I know it's crazy, man. New York was at its highest peak, man, and like
they were still accepting taxes, though. We're still getting tax bills.
I know, man. I hear you.
So you know what I mean? Like, I was offended by New York government's handling of the coronavirus for businesses. No doubt, man. Even now, I'm still offended by it. We tried to order from one of my favorite restaurants yesterday. Of course, it's closed.
Yep, it's crazy.
Of course, it's closed. Like. Man, you go to Miami. I was in a taxi in Florida. Taxi driver goes, COVID was great for Florida. Yeah. And I was like, oh, shit, I never thought about that. Yeah. Because it was so bad for New York. But like financially, business-wise, property values, business, everything came up in Florida. Crazy, man, Meanwhile, in New York City, everything died and struggled. And quite literally, obviously, people died. And it's tragic. But the way we handled it hurt everybody. And you look, I've got friends in other countries that were getting all their bills paid. We gave people a couple crumbs. Here's your $1,200 or $600 a month. Man, every citizen in Canada was getting thousands of dollars a month. In Korea, government's telling you stay home. They're shipping you groceries. Thank you for staying home. Here's masks. Here's food. It's like I watched how poorly we handled it with an educated vision of how the rest of the world was handling it. And Even now we're the most vaccinated country in the world. We've got the most COVID cases in the world. We're
Yeah.
still not doing it right. We're still in a pandemic. You know what I mean? Um, and it is the our federal government kind of said, well, we're going to let the states handle it. And so now we have all these different states with all these different opinions, with all these different governing bodies, and it's like, we have no unifying
Yeah, it
mission.
was crazy. I went to Miami in February of like last year with the kids and my wife, and I just posted a picture of like my family on like my Instagram story, and I got like 20 or 30 DMs from patients in New York, like, "Oh shit, doc, you down here in
Because
Miami?
everybody's
Are
in
you like, are
Miami.
you opening up shop down here? We're all
Right.
down here." Yeah, it was crazy. Everyone was in fucking Florida, man.
Yeah. Um,
Understandably, because it
more
was
more government doesn't always mean better government.
yeah, because it was depressing in New York, man. I used to come in on Fridays to see emergency patients. Couldn't even get a cup of coffee. Like the city was just, it was so sad to see. Like
Yeah.
in the beginning of March of 2020, we were at our peak. I remember I went to like a Nets game the Wednesday before the city shut down, and like folks were starting to wear masks a little bit.
Yep.
But yeah, I saw Memphis. I saw that was the only time I ever saw got to see John Morant play. It was an awesome game, and that was it. Like the next 2 days later, the city was shut down.
Yeah.
And like and now it's just like, I mean, the crime's out of control. There's a
Yeah.
lot of homeless. All of the restaurants, my favorite restaurant shut down too. Lots of places the streets are like half empty, like vacant. It's crazy to see.
Even more than half
Yeah,
empty. It was already 25% business vacancy in New York City pre-pandemic. I would bet it's closer to 40 now. You know what I
yeah,
mean? You can't walk down the street where half the stores aren't vacant. And that's because, the property taxes are high, state taxes are high, federal taxes are high. We're in New York City, we pay to play here, right? But it doesn't come back to us. You know what I mean? It's not like our subways are improving, our infrastructure is getting any better. My entire adult life, like New York's built like a bridge. And I think that it was the only bridge built in our country in that time period.
yeah,
And so like we don't put our money into our people. You go to Japan and see something different. It's like, oh, wow, shit works here. Things run correctly. It's
yeah,
clean. It's operational. It's safe. It's an older civilization,
yeah,
older society, and a less selfish society and way
yeah.
of being. Uh, Americans often think we're the center of the universe. We don't think as a group. We don't act as a group. Um, and a lot of our politicians are self-serving. Our
Almost all of them. I'd say.
one of my favorite sayings is a politician will politician the way an apple tree apples. Like I don't care what color they are, politician's gonna politician.
I like that.
It is what it is, and so it's been an interesting show to watch.
Yeah,
But we're right in the middle of it in New York City throughout the pandemic, closed, still having to pay our bills.
yeah,
It's just bleeding with little help. Thank God, they introduced a PPP. It helped us stay afloat, helped us stay alive.
just survive. I mean, just that.
I mean, the Paycheck Protection
Yeah,
Program
yeah,
was really less for business and more for to keep your employees employed
yeah.
off of unemployment,
Yeah.
right?
Which they'll give it to anyone.
Because if they're still on payroll, we still pay payroll tax.
Right,
So like they want
Yeah.
to keep that circle going. And when it started, you had to spend 70% on paychecks, 30%
Yeah.
of the money you could spend on your business. Well, in New York City, our rent is high and our
Yeah.
overhead paycheck cost is low. So our PPP numbers are not, like a company with thousands of people getting
Yeah.
millions of dollars. It's like you're trying to most of your money
Trying
spent
to pay
on
rent.
most of your money spent on
Yeah.
rent. You know what I mean? We like fucking $40,000 of rent in New York City.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So it adds up. And so, but helped us survive. So I'm grateful they did that. But the person running their own business, like struggling already,
Yep.
like
Can't survive.
fails. I mean, the reason all the restaurants died is because restaurants don't pay large salaries,
Right.
right? It's tip based,
Right.
and their overhead is their rent and their food cost. And so, like the PPP was kind of based off your salaries paid, and so that's why all the restaurants died. They didn't get much money, they didn't get much help. They
Yeah.
had to die. And it's like a small business genocide in New York City. And now, alternatively, just 2-hour flight away. Miami's booming.
Yeah.
Florida's booming.
Yeah.
So we're still in a pandemic. People are still struggling. We still have like European tourism, which used to be 40% of our clientele was tourists. Now I don't know if I don't even think 5% of our clientele today is tourists. Somehow we're still busy.
Do you have a big backlog to fulfill? Because I know, like for me, we kind of did. Like things started to get much. Things got busy pretty quick just because so many people didn't come in.
Not immediately. Like our first month, people were still. First month we were allowed to be open. Like we tattooed. We certainly had people who wanted to be tattooed, but like I said, we were so used to so many travelers. Like now we could only serve New York and local.
Yeah.
And people still weren't flying and things like that. So it took a while, but now, God, we're busier than ever, which is crazy to think. We still have tourists.
Yeah.
We 1,000 emails a day. Like, we can't type fast enough. We can't answer calls fast enough. We can't tattoo.
Yeah.
We don't want to tattoo fast enough, but we can't keep up with the demand, which is a crazy thought, but I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, man. That's it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely, man. Listen, man, I could talk to you forever, man. But I can't keep you here forever. I love this, man. I really love this conversation. There's just so many things to take out of this conversation. I mean, one is, again, like, you had to deal with some punches in your life, and you did. You sought help when you needed it, which is a big part of becoming successful. You had people there because you had valuable relationships that wanted to help you when you needed it. Now you're helping people, I'm sure, in the same way that you were helped because you have the capacity to do that. It's literally the cycle of life. And like, one of the things that also, just from speaking with you, because this is a much more in-depth conversation than we've ever had, but just even when we're texting or exchanging DMs, it doesn't matter. Like, education doesn't matter. You're one of the smartest people I've ever met. And, you have a command of business, you have a command of dealing with people. And it's inspiring, man. And I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story here, man.
It's really my pleasure, man. I've never been the person on top of a mountain shouting, we're great at this. It's been people like you or media or celebrities that are saying like who we are, telling the world who we are. We're just focused on the work. So I'm grateful that people spread the word. This is it really the only way people have ever learned about us is word of mouth.
Yeah. Which is the best way.
I'm really proud we've never spent a marketing dollar. We're the most followed business in New York City. It's like it's something I'm super proud of, and it speaks to all the people who've spoken about us, because we just been working, So
it all comes back to you and your team, man.
I'm humbled. I'm humbled that that we're somebody you look up to. That feeling is mutual.
Yeah, I appreciate that, my man. Just so I know you don't need to tell people where to find you, but where should people find you, man?
Google is your friend.
There you go. Yeah. Just Bang Bang, Instagram is off the chain, so folks definitely need to follow that.
Bang Bang NYC. It's fun. You'll stay up all night obsessing over tattoos.
And then you'll inspire you to get a tattoo.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, brother. Well, thanks so much again for spending your morning with us.
My pleasure.